Bothwell, and I'm here with Louise Bruce. She's the Managing Director of the Recycling Partnerships Center for Sustainable Behavior and Impact. Hi, Louise. It's so
Hi,
nice to
Liz.
see you again.
Great
Hi.
to see you.
So I know we're here to discuss the exciting launch of the center's new knowledge report, but before we dig deeper into that, could you please tell us more about behavior change in general?
Absolutely. So, when we talk about behavior change at the Center for Sustainable Behavior and Impact, what we're really talking about is how do we increase the participation, both sort of in frequency and accuracy of each of the individual households across America in their local recycling programs. So, to take a step back, in the United States, we have 125 million households. And we all know well that the US recycling system is essentially a massive reverse supply chain that begins in each of those individual households. And so, how our Americans feel, how sort of what their relationship is with the various materials that pass through their homes, what their household organization systems look like, all matter to whether we're able on the other end to capture the maximum amount of recyclables.
And for the folks watching at home who don't know about the center yet, Louise, could you just tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So, building on a long history of looking at household recycling behaviors, looking at what drives participation, the Recycling Partnership decided we needed a place where we could focus on really studying human trends, patterns, decisions, thinking about how we could overcome this intention action gap that we see where the vast majority of Americans significantly support recycling, but that we're still losing out on about 50% of the recyclables that we could capture from the households that have access to curbside recycling service today. And so we last year launched the center, which is a space at the partnership where we're digging in deep, conducting surveys and research that allows us to understand exactly that. What motivates people? What are the barriers they're facing? And how can we support them?
It's so great to hear about it and see what you're accomplishing there. And I know the recycling industry is among the first to say to itself, we all need to help at every stage of the process. And behavior change is a huge part of that. Could you tell us why it's so important in recycling?
Yeah, so earlier I was talking about those 125 million US households. But if we look inside just one of them, so imagine for yourself your own household or your neighbor's household, that household is on average generating somewhere around 750 to 800 pounds of recyclables per year. Based on our research, we've been able to measure that in that same household, despite the sort of availability of that 750, 800 pounds of recyclables, we're losing about 350 to 400 pounds. And that's just due to behavior gaps like confusion. Do I have to take this apart? Does my local program accept this material? What is this material that I'm holding in my hand? Just sort of we need to do a lot of work to support people on the confusion side. It also stems from a lack of confidence. We see that less than half of Americans believe that their materials are made into new things, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all sort of, I think, feelings that are very familiar. But ultimately, the point is that if we're able to better support people, we'll be able to capture that other sort of 50% of the material that right now is going into the trash or being lost sort of in other ways, and really boost our recycling rates as a result.
And now the knowledge report. I'm so excited about this, and so much work and energy went into it. Can you tell us more about that breakthrough insights piece, please?
Absolutely. So in the past 2 years alone, the Recycling Partnership has been conducting a massive portfolio of research around sort of what we can do to support people. That's looked like a series of surveys through which we've talked to 10,000 Americans. 10,000 voices have been heard through this process. We've then taken that information and conducted focus groups to better understand what we're seeing quantitatively. And then we've taken all of that research and designed 23 intervention strategies that we've then tested in 7 jurisdictions across the country in a total of 52,000 households. So not just stopping at what do people say they need or what are they indicating they need through surveys, but what actually then can we develop that will change behaviors at the bin. And so the knowledge report is sort of a summation of all of that. If you'll be able to dig into any individual study that we've conducted, our audience segmentation, for instance, our recycling confidence index. You'll be able to see, really sort of like peel back the curtain and look into people's homes through our summary of our ethnography report. But we're also using the knowledge report as an opportunity to take you on a sort of a journey of what were the major themes that our team saw come out of all of these individual initiatives. What are the sort of 4 themes that we believe we must make true if we're going to scale behavior change nationally?
I'd love to hear more about those 4 themes.
So let's start with number 1. Number 1 is that we absolutely need a sort of communications infrastructure is what we're calling it. So we think, very often of the infrastructure we need to design our collection and processing, or to make possible collection and processing of recyclables. We're convinced now from our research that we need a communications infrastructure that is on par with that physical infrastructure. And so what do I mean by that? Well, one thing that our research showed us was that 75% of Americans cannot recall receiving a communication from their local recycling program. That could be because they're not receiving it. That could be because we're not designing communications that are sort of grabbing people's attentions at the right moments. And so if we're going to expect that people put the right materials in the bin, we absolutely need to make sure that we're communicating with them in the ways that they expect to receive communications when they most need them, between that sort of point of purchase where you're first introduced to a package all the way to that point of disposal when you're making the final choices about where it goes. The other thing, on the communications infrastructure side that I think is really fascinating is that we all know that recycling programs change. You might expand your accepted materials list because of new capacity locally to accept, say, polypropylene or another material. Packaging is also evolving. And so there's changes on that front in sort of the materials that we're physically handling. But people really don't expect that change. And it's understandable. I think, many of us learned to recycle for the first time when we were in grade school or from our parents, and we've kept those recycling habits for, since then. And so when you think about the progress the recycling industry has made in the last, several decades, but that people are still sort of recycling in the way that they learned a couple of decades ago, it's sort of clear that we need to do a lot of work to make sure we're helping them understand that change is a good thing and that they should be looking out for new evolution in their local program.
Thank you for that, Louise. Could you tell me more about theme 2?
Theme 2 is all about increasing confidence, both in the recycling system at large, but also in our own ability to participate in our local recycling program. So I said earlier that about half of all Americans aren't sure whether those materials they're putting at the curb are actually getting recycled. And so this theme of confidence, not just whether, that confidence in the system, as I just described, but also my own confidence in my ability to participate in my local recycling program is critically important. As people lose confidence, we really risk losing recyclers, and we think it'll be more and more costly and difficult to get them back. If I start to believe that my recycling system doesn't work, then my sort of participation habits maybe start to dwindle, start to lag, and then it's going to be much more difficult to convince me that yes, it is indeed working. And so we need to invest right now in restoring confidence and figuring out how do we peel back the curtain, show Americans the really great work that's happening in the recycling system, show them their local MRF, and deliver the right kind of motivational messaging that meets them where they are and helps them understand how critical their participation is. Number 3 is all about tailoring while scaling. And so I think, as we talk to recycling program managers across the country, we see a theme over and over again is that community recycling program managers have long wanted to move beyond this one-size-fits-all approach. I think back to my time working with the city of New York. where I was talking to New Yorkers often about organics collection in particular. And I would send out sort of like blanket messaging where, we had developed one postcard, and that one postcard would be delivered to all participants in a program. And there's real reasons for that. There's sort of efficiency and resource reasons that we get a singular message out there. But we're realizing that we really need to be thinking about, what are the varying needs of the audiences that are receiving this, who most critically needs motivational messaging, and how can we design it effectively for that. And so just to give you an example of what that's looked like, we've done things like a national audience segmentation that tells us about the types of recyclers, and that's allowed us to shape motivational messaging based on the needs we're seeing from various recycling groups. So do we need to deliver an empathetic message, for instance? People are going through a lot right now, and we're asking them to take on the extra effort of recycling. Could empathy play a role, for instance, in helping to drive their participation?
Louise, thank you for that. Can we dig into theme number 4 now?
Absolutely. So our fourth and final theme for today is all about how do we bring a behavior-centered lens to our work? How can we design with people in mind, design with sort of actually, I want to go even further and say people first lens. So that fourth is really about making sure that as we do all the things that I've listed above, design additional communications, as we think about building confidence, as we think about delivering sort of more tailored messages at scale, more tailored resources at scale, that we're doing each of those with behavior in mind. And so that when we approach the program design, approach the design of our resources in an evidence-backed way, but by really looking inside the home. So how did we at the center do that? We conducted something called ethnographic research, which takes us inside the home. We spent time with households in California and Ohio, and we were able to dig in on what are the sort of trends we see, what does it look like to manage materials in the home, and does it or does it not necessarily mirror how we manage trash? And what we saw was that there's this sort of really incredible individual variability that in some cases, recycling, sortation, and management does mirror sort of trash systems, but in some cases, it's actually sort of much more a part of how someone manages their household. And so there's, I think, real innovation happening inside the home that we could latch on to. There's, for instance, sort of ways that Americans are working to increase the flow of recyclables, not just sort of capturing them in the kitchen, but going beyond the kitchen and going to bathrooms and offices. Sort of designing baskets that aesthetically, or sort of collection systems that aesthetically align with how they're designing their households. And these are really new ways of thinking about how do we work with people, how do we partner with them actually to increase the flow of material through their home, and then ultimately just capture many more of the recyclables that we're all after.
So Louise, wow, the center is really proving itself to be that data-backed hub that you and the partnership envisioned when you launched. So I know you have a lot happening with the report, but tell me what's next.
So we've got two major ways to plug in with the center. So the first is that we have a webinar series that will dig in much more deeply on all of the themes that we covered here. Sort of how do we build this communications infrastructure? How do we boost confidence? How do we deliver tailored motivational messaging, for instance? All of that I'm very excited. We'll be digging in on all of that with the experts who ran the research. And so I hope everyone will stay tuned for those conversations and sign up as soon as you see a registration link from us. We're also rolling out our Recycling Program Solutions Hub, which is a tool that recycling program managers can use to access all of the Recycling Partnerships resources, all of the Center for Sustainable Behavior and Impacts research. As it comes in, our goal is to get our evidence, our insights, et cetera, onto the tool so you can access it and take action immediately in your local program. And then there's just tons of other ways to get involved with the center. You can partner with us on behavior change activities. We're happy to to meet with you to sort of troubleshoot, dig in on any challenges you're facing. And then we'd love to hear about your research. Are you doing something similar? Are you studying confidence? Are you rolling out exciting interventions that are driving participation and increasing the capture of materials? Are you working to improve in creative ways the contamination levels and improve the quality of the material you're collecting? All of that is really interesting to us, really important. We want to hold it up, highlight it, and share it with others. So let us know. And whatever way you'd like to plug in, we hope that you'll get in touch with the center and join us in this important work.
I'm sure everyone will. And I love the research and the fact that you're offering such action-based resources for everyone as well. So thank you, Louise. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Liz. I'm so excited to share all of this. So really, really appreciate the opportunity.